As the tech industry is navigating through uncertain market conditions, shifting public policies, and a new administration, it's important that we take a look at how transformations are impacting the broader industry. To break this all down, I am joined by the founders of SiliconANGLE's, theCUBE, Dave Vellante and John Furrier. Start off the conversation by talking about the tech demand, right? We are seeing different headwinds that are impacting the current landscape. Talk to me about what the biggest key headlines are.
Well, I mean, headwinds are all relative, right? We came out of COVID and we were spending 7-8% a year. Now it's down in the 3 to 5% range. And because people are shifting budgets from traditional spend into Gen AI. And so that's stealing and creating a headwind. That's number one. Number two is people aren't getting the ROI they need. They're hitting, small wins. And so that means people are a little bit cautious right now.
And John, how would you describe the current economic environment we're seeing in the tech sector?
The demand for AI is off the charts. Demand growth is growing faster than budget. So there's a huge pressure on companies to build and grow with AI. I think the biggest headwind is a combination of supply of equipment, AI infrastructure, and geopolitical forces as tech becomes a political element of our conversation. You're seeing a lot more conversations around the role of tech and specifically AI outside the United States, and geopolitical certainly as the new election puts into place with Trump taking over, China, the role of the chips. All that is in play, and that may impact the supply chain.
All right, now as the Trump administration takes shape, talk to me about your predictions for 2025, specifically when it comes to semiconductors, infrastructure, and software industries. Dave, we'll start with you.
Well, there's a big shift in public policy right now. Tech bros are lining up, behind the administration. Apple, Zuck is funding the inauguration, as we saw, et cetera, Jeff Bezos. And so I think that's smart with the tech industry to, why not lobby the administration? And you also see Gary Gensler is out, so that could be a good tailwind for crypto. Lena Khan is out, so that might mean good things for M&A. We'll see. We'll see if the new administration is, more favorable. I think it will be. I think there's no question. It couldn't be more friction. And so I think you're going to see some positive tailwinds.
John, do you think that we're going to see different trends as, Trump fully takes office and the new administration goes full force?
Yeah, I think we're living in a global economy, and I think The World is Flat was a famous book that talked about that, and I think that's going to have an impact to how the United States postures its competitive advantage. AI will be a major force. Some call AI the Manhattan Project of our generation. Others look at crypto, with Trump looking at crypto and Bitcoin specifically and buying a big reserve up. You got the Middle East, you got China. Again, everything's now on the table. When you look at sovereignty in the U.S., you'll see the U.S. probably take a position to either be more protection-oriented around the technologies and look for a competitive advantage for productivity. And of course, this is all going to impact supply chain as well, because the semiconductor ban that Biden put in place might have an impact to how we treat caps on exports and things of that nature. So this is all kind of at the nexus of competitive advantage as a country, but also the companies here in the exchange and the stock and prices and their revenue may be impacted by the demand and the supply chain specifically.
Now, given economic uncertainty, how are you seeing customers shift their priorities, and how are companies responding?
Well, the market's really bifurcated right now. I mean, all the action is the hyperscalers will probably spend the big three hyperscalers, about $200 billion this year. And ironically, NVIDIA will do about $200 billion this year. It's not a one-to-one, but they're picking up a lot of that data center business. And so I think customers, they see the headlines, but for the enterprises, they're still trying to figure out, okay, how do I take the experiments that I've run for the last year and a half in the cloud, bring that maybe into my own data centers, or move more data into the cloud? And they're trying to figure out where the big value is. So they're looking at doing more with less people, or even cutting head count, or driving revenue. And that latter one is a little elusive right now. I think the head count is much more straightforward.
John, talk to me about the current cloud and hyperscale market. Where is it now? Where is it going to go?
The hyperscale market's kind of historic in the sense of we're now on Gen 2 of the cloud, AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft, Oracle, and others. And you're seeing kind of a next level kind of economic boon. And for example, the enterprise is the top focus of all these top clouds, because that's where the AI has the most upside potential. And you're seeing people look at their return on investments as a more practical approach. People aren't looking for the home run ball, so to speak. They're looking to hit some singles, get on base, get some wins. It's not a winner take all market, it's a winner take most. You see NVIDIA doing well, AMD should come in on the semis, but AI infrastructure is the top focus. And once that's kind of settled, this data layer is going to kick in. The agents are going to come in, the agentic systems, we call it. That's going to fuel the software development frenzy that's happening right now as developers in the ecosystem are constantly using low-code, no-code agents to write code. So you're going to see a lot more pressure on the hyperscalers to serve these developers that are going to bring in new brands, new companies will form, and you're going to see a lot of wealth creation, Trinity, around AI, and that's going to be a huge renaissance of the computer industry.
And speaking of AI, quantum computing is also dominating headlines right now. Dave, I'd be interested to hear your take on what innovation you see emerging in 2025. What are going to be the key disruptors for this year?
I think the big trend is that every layer of the stack is going to be AI optimized. So compute, storage, networking, the operating system, the data layer, the applications, everything is going to be AI-ified. And so that means that you're going to have in compute, it's clustered systems, something that John talks about a lot. It's distributed file systems in storage. It's ultra low latency networks. It's new tooling for the operating system. It's new data layers where data is harmonized so agents can use them. Agents into applications. We're seeing that with companies like Salesforce and others. And so every piece of the stack is going to be optimized for AI.
Now, with supply chain pressures and geopolitical tensions still at play, John, what would your message to investors be at this point?
One, look for value, and you're going to see a shift. There's trillions of dollars, as we had forecasted last week, about $1.4 trillion of spend shifting to AI and data growth. And again, that growth is happening faster than budgets. So that's going to have to come from somewhere. It's going to be in the data center and the edge and the enterprise. And you're going to see companies go to a new architecture. Companies like Vast Data. You're seeing companies that are doing things completely different than what they were doing 5 years ago. So as an investor, you want to look for, I call it the NVIDIA factor. You know, NVIDIA could be that next Intel. They already replaced Intel on the S&P. You're seeing them take major market share, and the personal computing revolution of the 80s and then the networking revolution of the 90s changed the entire landscape. Now we're seeing that same thing happen again, where supercomputer revolution's here, democratizing supercomputing, and then what's going to follow immediately after is a networking revolution. That new architecture will bring in new companies and treat the existing incumbents in the market either on the right side of history or the wrong side of history. And the next 12 to 24 months, you're going to see a lot of losers and a lot of winners and new brands going to emerge.
And Dave, given the economic uncertainty, how are you seeing tech companies respond?
You know, there's been three great monopolies in the history of the computer industry. First it was IBM, then it was Wintel. And I guess I'd say the hyperscalers are maybe the third. I think to John's point, people are doubling down on NVIDIA. I think NVIDIA is win and tell. I mean, they're essentially the hardware and the software. And I think you're seeing the entire industry line up around NVIDIA. You're also seeing a whole lot of tech companies trying to find alternatives that are lower cost so they don't have to pay NVIDIA their 65% operating margins. But I think I think NVIDIA is looking pretty solid right now. And I think those alternatives are going to find their place. But I think companies are making their bets and they're betting on NVIDIA.
Well, gentlemen, it's always a pleasure speaking to you both. Thank you for joining
Thanks,
me on TV Stock.
Great to see you.
Great to see you.